guys, how's it going? I am finally back. We've been away for a couple of weeks and not been making videos for those couple of weeks, but I am finally back, and not only have I missed making videos, but I have missed my garden. I was away for a full week and the garden looks like it. It is overgrown and lush and beautiful and I love it, but it also has some maintenance that it needs to be done. And so that's what today's video is. I'm going to be just showing you guys what I'm doing on my garden maintenance. I think sometimes it's really helpful to see the practical things that we need to be doing to maintain our garden. And as the summer gets rolling, the garden starts to get kind of crazy and starts to just grow out of control. And so these are the things that we do to maintain it and to keep it I don't know, we don't want to control it altogether, but just to keep it kind of manageable. Today I'm going to be focusing on my tomatoes, mostly. We'll see what else we get into. But I need to be tying my tomatoes up and pruning them. I did most of my pruning yesterday, but we'll see if we have any more to do. We might have a little bit more pruning to do. Also, I kind of made a huge mistake. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to share this with you guys, and I know there's going to be a lot of people who would probably yell at me and turn their nose up at me, and that's fine, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. So, I had like a huge weed problem up here in the one corner of my raised bed garden that we created, and I was laying down mulch for it, and I had a lot of joint grass and things like that, which are also called crabgrass if you guys have that in your area. And it was just being really difficult. I couldn't get rid of it. I wanted to lay this mulch down and I was afraid that it would just grow up through. And so in my haste and my wanting to just get it done, I took some weed killer that we use on our driveway and things like that. I don't ever use chemicals up in my garden space except for this one time, and I'll probably never do it again because it killed some of my tomato plants. So I used a synthetic. There are some good weed killers out there that are more organic. I think it's Bonide has some good ones that you guys can look into if you are into that sort of thing. I wish I would have done that instead and would have been patient. But you know, that kind of gets me sometimes. I'm impatient, just want to use what I have and get the project done so I can move on to the next thing, and sometimes that bites me in the butt, and it did this time. So I do want to show that to you guys in case you were dealing with something similar. I actually didn't know what was going on with my tomato plants at first. I was like, why are they looking this way? What's happening? I finally realized that even though it was several feet away that I had sprayed, that the spray somehow affected my tomato plants, whether they brought it up through the soil, whether the wind blew it on them. I'm not really sure what happened, but I will show you what they look like. And if you are dealing with something similar, they could have been affected by a spray. I thought it just might be helpful for some of you to see what that looks like and just rule out one more thing. I will say too that tomato plants are extremely sensitive to things like that. So like none of my other plants that were around that area are showing stress or anything at all. They're totally fine, and that's what I assumed would happen because I was very targeted in my use of the spray, and I made sure that I thought the wind wasn't blowing on any of my things, and I tried to be very careful with it, but it still happened. So I guess it's a lesson learned. So yeah, let me show you what they look like, and then we'll go from there. And then I also have some tomato plants to replace those that I killed. So let me show you what they look like. So just for comparison, this is what my normal tomato plants are looking like right now. They're all nice and green and healthy looking. And this is what the ones that were affected by the spray look like. They started out yellowing towards the center of the leaf, like this one here. And then these were all full of leaves, and they've just completely burned off, fallen off. I don't even know and they look kind of like weird and curly almost. So that's what they look like. Bring you over, there's some over here that were affected, and it was just this one corner, but I'm still very disappointed. It's very frustrating. I should have known better, but just being hasty, just tried to do it the quick way. So if anyone can learn from my stupidity and my failures and my lack of patience in getting the right products and things like that, there you go. You can learn from me. So what I'm going to be doing is pulling those plants out. Some of them look like they may survive, but I've been thinking about it, and I don't really want to keep any plants that are showing signs of the chemical, just because then I don't know how much of that chemical would get into the fruit, and I just don't want to mess with that. I'm done with the whole thing. So I'm just going to pull those plants out that were affected, and I'm going to plant 4 new plants. I can't get the same varieties that I had before, unfortunately, at this point in time, but I am going to try to be collecting some suckers off of my tomatoes that I had there before and trying to root them and start them a little bit later. And then that will help, hopefully, to recoup some of the tomatoes that I lost, which I will show you guys later in that, because that's actually a really cool process that kind of blew my mind last year. I didn't realize that you could do it, and then I tried it and it worked brilliantly. I loved it. So we still have like 35 tomato plants, I think. So although I'm quite sad that we lost these, and really to a stupid reason, I still have quite a few. And I am, like I said, I am going to try to replace the other ones with suckers that I create more tomato plants off of what I have. But anyway, yeah. So first thing we're going to do today is I'm going to rip out the ones that were affected and get the new tomato plants planted. Okay, now that I got all the new plants replanted, I wanted to show you what kind I was putting in right now. These are just a red beefsteak tomato that we could pick up at our local Tractor Supply. Once I realized what was going on with those other ones and that I wanted to get rid of them, I realized that I had lost all my slicer tomatoes. And so my husband was at Tractor Supply. I was like, just go ahead and pick up some slicer tomatoes, and then we can at least get those going. And like I said, I'm going to try to save some suckers from my other tomato plants, like my San Marzanos, that I was going to have for sauces and things. I think I lost 4 of those plants. So I'll try to save some of those suckers and reroot them, and then I'll be able to plant those as well. They'll just be a little later than the other ones, which actually might not be a bad thing. Give me a little bit of a break in harvest time. Okay, so now that that's done, I want to go around and start to tie up my tomatoes. I'm going to be growing my tomato plants up this fence this year. I want to kind of trellis them up the fence, and I'm also going to be trellising some tomatoes up these bamboo poles here that I have. And I'm hoping that this goes okay. I'm hoping that I'm able to keep on top of them and get them to grow up really nice, and we'll just see. You guys are going to come along with me and see if this is a total fail. But doing it this way, I can plant a lot more tomatoes in one space. And so I have packed this place out with tomatoes. Let me show you. So in theory, this should work. But I have tomato plants all along the front fence line of the garden here, and I will just be, let me see if I can find one. Right there. See how I have the tomato plant tied up to the fence there? There's a better angle. I will be doing that as the tomato plants grow and pruning them, and then I should be able to train the tomato plants up the side of the trellis and keep them out of the dirt and hopefully sort of together. I don't know. We'll see. This could be like a monstrous mess in a few weeks. That's sort of the fun in gardening though. Like, you get to try different things, you get to experiment a little bit and maybe push the rules a little bit sometimes. These tomato plants are planted way closer together than you should ever plant tomato plants. But because I am trying to grow them up this trellising, staking system, they should have enough room. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. You and I together, you can see me fail, or you can see me succeed. And hopefully I succeed, because I want to get a lot of tomatoes off these plants this year and do a lot of sauce and canning and things like that. So let me show you how I am tying these tomato plants up. Okay, so I feel like this tomato plant here is a good one to show you kind of what I am doing. And so whenever I'm looking at the tomato plant, I want to obviously connect it to our fencing so that it will continue to grow up that way and have strength that way. But I also kind of want to control how the limbs are, what they're doing. And so like this limb right here, he's kind of in the way of me really training my tomato up. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut him off. And then I can take a piece of twine or something like that. I'm just going to gently wrap that around the main stem of our tomato plant and then tie it off on our fence here. Just like that. And I want to show you too, I'm not tying these super tight to the fence. This has a good couple of inches to it. It has some wiggle room, and I'm not stressing this plant out by tying it so tight. I'm just doing a gentle loop around it and kind of just training it gently up the fence. So that's what I'm going to be doing for all these tomato plants. I'm going to be pruning them to whatever I need, getting rid of any pieces that are growing the wrong way or going to cause me some problems. And when you are pruning your tomato plants, you just want to keep in mind that you don't really want to take off more than 20% of the plant at a time. That'll shock the plant too much and could potentially kill it. So you don't want to go crazy cutting off all the leaves, not to mention the fact that you could start cutting off some fruit if you're not careful. So I'm just going to go along and tie all these tomato plants up to the fence, and then I'll show you how I'm going to tie my tomato plants up to the stake. It's pretty much the same thing, but just a different apparatus, I guess. Okay, so now that I got all of those tomato plants tied up, there's a few more little ones that are along the fence on that side, but they're still pretty tiny, so I don't think I'm going to do those yet. Now I'll show you how I'm going to tie them up to the stakes. Okay, so this tomato plant right here, I actually have already tied it off once right here at the bottom of this stake right here, and it is starting to get even bigger and go crazy. So I'm just going to straighten him up and tie him again right here so that he continues to follow the stake upward. So I'm going to just go to a good sturdy spot here and tie him up. This one, with these little tiny stakes, I'm tying them a little tighter. I don't want there to be as much wiggle room, so I'm making sure that I'm getting them nice and secure. I also see a sucker on this plant. I was talking about saving some suckers off of my San Marzano tomatoes, and this is not a San Marzano. This is a purple cherry tomato. But right here you can see where the main stem of the tomato plant is, where a leaf is, and then in the armpit of the main stem and the leaf, this right here is called a sucker. And whenever you're training tomatoes up like this, you want to cut those off and get rid of those, because those will make your tomatoes go crazy all over the place. And if you wanted more of this particular tomato plant, all you'd have to do is stick this in some water for a couple of days until it started to grow some roots, and then you could pot it up and you have a new tomato plant. So I'm just going to continue tying the rest of these tomatoes up to the stakes the same way that I just showed you this one. And that's basically it. It's a pretty simple process. I think it's keeping on top of the tomatoes as they grow and not letting them get so out of hand that you can't really get them back is kind of key. So keeping an eye on them, making sure you tie them up whenever they have a lot of growth on them or whatever, making sure that you're keeping them trained is really the key to this method. And like I said, this is my first time ever doing it, so I might be totally wrong, but I think it should work. Well, I think that's going to be it for this video. It's starting to pour on me. I don't mind a little rain while I'm doing the garden work. I actually find it sort of refreshing and nice. I don't know. But it doesn't make it great for the camera. So I should probably call it a day here. I hope you guys learned something from my foolish mistakes or from showing you how to train up your tomatoes. But whatever it is, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see you in the next one. Oh, one more thing I forgot to tell you guys. If you noticed my garden apron, I don't know what to call it, utility pouch, I don't know. This is something new that I am trying out. I found it on Amazon, and I will link it down below if you guys like it, if you guys would be interested in something like this. I have been trying it out for the past couple days, and I absolutely love it. It keeps everything right at my fingertips. I'm not putting down my pruners and losing them and can't find them and all that jazz. So if you guys are interested in it, I will link it down below, and I will also be linking some things like twine to prune up or to tie up your tomatoes, and my favorite pair of pruners, and all those sorts of things. So make sure you check out the description below. I like to share some things with you guys down there, some products and things, if you guys are interested. But yeah, I think that's it now. Bye!